Hi guys, it's February, so it's the beginning of Black History Month, and I wanted to give some recommendations of books by Black authors if you want to read some books by Black authors this month, and then also sharing what I'm going to read this month for my own Black History Month journey. I think it's really important for everyone to diversify their reading and read from different perspectives that they're not used to. So this is why I'm giving recommendations for books that I like. I'm going to start off with a banger, my favorite. It's Homegoing by Y'all Jesse. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It was genuinely so impressive, it blew my mind. It starts off following two sisters. One is sold as a slave to America and one marries a slave trader and stays in Ghana. And it's technically a collection of short stories because every chapter is about a different person down their lineage. I've never read anything in this format before, and I actually really liked it because it's really fast paced. And everyone's story is so different because it's a different place and time, but the themes of the Black experience translate over the generations. So the author was inspired to write the story because she visited the Cape Coast Castle in Ghana and then wanted to write a book about it. So then she did all of this research, and the research was so impressive and all of the stories flowed together so seamlessly. At the beginning, it's really hard to read because of the brutality and the violence, but it's true, so I think it's really important for everyone to read. I did not want to put the book down because I wanted to know what was going to happen, and after I finished it, I binged all of the author's interviews because I was so impressed by her writing and research process. And I actually learned so much from this book because growing up in school, I had only learned about America's role in the slave trade process and not Ghana's role at all from that perspective, so that was really important. Okay, the next one is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I actually read this in 2018, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember that much, but I did give it 5 stars. James Baldwin is a really popular and well-respected author and civil rights activist. This book was published in 1953, so I think all of his books were published like 50s, 60s, 70s, like kind of around that time. So this book is semi-autobiographical. It's about this boy named John, and he's 14 and lives in Harlem, and his dad is a minister, and it's like a coming of age story where he comes to terms with his relationships with spirituality and his sexuality. Honestly, that's all I remember because I read it so long ago. But I'm really excited to read more James Baldwin. I definitely want to read like a lot of his books this year. Okay, I also really liked The Death of Vivek Oji, and this book follows the life and, in the title, The Death of Vivek Oji. He's a young Nigerian man who has these dissociative blackouts, and it follows his experience with sexuality and gender identity. This book was not perfect. There were definitely some parts that weirded me out a little bit, but overall, I literally cried at the end. Like, it was really good. And I thought it was a really interesting perspective to read about. Okay, another one of my favorites is The Girl with the Latin Voice by Abi Dare. This is one of the most inspiring and resilient stories about the importance of education. It's about this 14-year-old Nigerian girl. She lives in a really remote village and she wants to go to school instead of getting married. And it's about her experience literally running away on foot from her village to go to a more populated town to work as a maid so she can become educated. Trigger warning for sure. There's a lot of domestic abuse and sexual assault in that book, but it's just such an amazing story. It really makes you grateful about how lucky you are to have the access to education. Okay, and for the romance girlies, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. So the main character's name is Eva, and she's a mom and has debilitating migraines, and she's an author, and she goes to this literature event and runs into this man named Shane from her past, and it's kind of like a dual timeline now and then what happened to them when they knew each other in the past. And so I guess for a week in June when they were like high school age, they spent this really romantic week together, and then something happened and they didn't see each other for 15 years until this literary event. So it's kind of like what happened then and then them rekindling now, and it was really good. Queenie by Candace Carty Williams. This book is about this 25-year-old Jamaican British woman, and she lives in London. It's about her experience dating. It's honestly, if you're in your 20s, it's like pretty relatable. It's like her self-esteem while dating, her mental health, her culture's relationship to mental health, which is different than like where I come from in LA. It's more of like a fun, easy read, I would say, than these other books. But it's definitely good to read if you're feeling lost in your 20s. Okay, next, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I feel like everyone has read this already, but it follows the lives of two light-skinned girls, and one marries a man who's like very dark, and then one passes as white pretty much and lives her life like as a white person. It just follows their whole lives and the stark differences between how they're treated and their lives, you know, living as a Black person versus passing as a white person. I think it was voted like the best book of 2020 or something. I don't know which award, but it's for a good reason. It's really good. Okay, then one of the most eye-opening books I've ever read was Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. So this is about his work on death row, where he tries to exonerate people who have been wrongly convicted. This book completely changed my perspective on the death penalty, because before I was kind of framed it as, does this person deserve to die? And after reading this book, he frames it in a way that's more questioning, does the government have the right to kill people? And just the relationships that he built with every single person that he worked with on death row, it just personifies all these people. And it's so sad. Literally, some of these people are innocent and they're getting killed. And it is so eye-opening, and I really, really think that everyone should read this because it's really important. And then in 2020, in the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, I listened to So You Want to Talk About Race on audiobook, and I like listening to nonfiction books just because it's like kind of a podcast and I can just like turn on a chapter when I'm walking. And then I prefer, if I'm sitting down and reading a book, I prefer to read fiction. This, I would say, is more of like an introductory book into the Black experience in America. So if you're Black, like, you wouldn't really get anything out of this, I don't think. But I did think that I already knew a lot from college, and then I actually learned a lot from this book. And I've listened to a couple books about the Black experience, and this one was definitely my favorite. Okay, and the last one is Finding Me by Viola Davis. So it's her memoir. I listened to the audiobook, which I highly recommend because the way she tells her story is so powerful. It's a book pretty much about her whole life. It starts in her childhood, how she was raised, how she became an actress, until now. It's the best story I've ever read. She just went through so many hardships and literally started from nothing and made her way now to be like one of the most famous actresses in the world. It's so amazing. Her determination and resilience is so inspiring. Like, these stories you just would never guess that she went through, but I feel like everyone that has read it just thinks it's amazing, so definitely recommend listening to that one. So let's get into what I'm gonna read this month. Right now I'm about halfway through Transcending Kingdom by Y'all Jessie. She's the same author that wrote Homegoing. This is about this girl or young woman named Gifty, and her family's from Ghana, and then they moved to Alabama, and she was born in Alabama. And right now she's a PhD student studying psychology, and she works in a lab with mice. And her mom has really bad mental health issues, like depressive episodes, and her brother died of a heroin overdose. So it's really interesting that she's studying psychology when people in her family obviously struggle with it. And one aspect I find of it that's really interesting is how she was raised she was raised Christian, and now she's studying science, and obviously like everyone in her program doesn't believe in religion, and so she's really struggling with how to balance like what she believes in religion and what she's learning in school. I don't like it as much as Homegoing just because I don't think it's like as fast-paced as or interesting, but if you also like grew up Christian and are studying science and are kind of confused by both of it, I think you would relate to a lot of things that are in this book. And then I'm going to read Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. So I haven't really read anything by Angela Davis, so I'm excited to learn more about her. And this one has been extremely recommended recently because of Palestine, so I think this is one of the main books recommended just to learn more about advocating for Palestine. I don't really know that much other about it. I think it's like a collection of essays, but I'm excited. And then I'm going to read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I don't know why it took me so long because the last book I read by him was like 6 years ago. But I know that Giovanni's Room is one of his, if not the most well-loved book by him. So I'm super excited to read that. Okay, that's it. Let me know if you have any other recommendations by Black authors. I would love to read more. Thank you for watching. Bye.